What it do? I'm saying. I'm talking about. Let's chop it up.
Welcome back to the Let's Chop It Up podcast, man. Y'all probably thought it was over, but we still talking about it because today we joined with somebody. I don't know if y'all remember that Elox and Whiteout said that there was somebody that, for the lack of better words, was a financial guy. You know what I'm saying? And we joined today with him. But as we normally do, it's your brother Mo. It's my boy Elox, Crazy Chris, and none other than Pastor Mike Hernandez, once known as a financial guy. No. Why did we say that you're the financial guy? Why would we call you that?
Because I was the financial guy for an extremely long time.
At this cult, right?
Yes, sir.
Before we get into that, though, let's say this. This is Pastor Mike Hernandez, so we don't want y'all to get it twisted with what happened in the past to what's going on now. Even though we're going to take it back to the past, and we're going to talk about a lot of things that happened. We want y'all to know that same thing with my brother Elox and Whiteout, who's not here with us today. Man, we know these brothers, you know what I'm saying? And we've seen the maturity and growth in them, and we see their walks. And don't get twisted what happened in the past with what's today. And today, it's also an opportunity for us to grow. And just like the episode when we spoke about the coach stuff, he was a cult leader.
Yes,
he was the one that you see on stage, and you be like, okay, he's a pastor.
Now, just to clarify, right?
Yeah.
So, I love my brother Mike.
Yeah.
But we got some questions.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody got some questions.
I got some answers.
And just to clarify, this is Pastor Mike Hernandez, but he was not the pastor that was involved in these allegations.
I was an associate pastor. I wasn't
pastor.
the senior pastor.
Now you're a pastor, got your own
now
church.
I'm a senior pastor, correct.
Yeah. But at the time of when you were at this cult, you weren't involved in any of those misconducts, allegations that was popping up, correct?
No. But I want to say that first that it started as a church, and I want to be clear on that. And it turned into a cult. I don't think somebody's going to join a cult for the sake of joining a cult.
No, so I showed up, they had a banner that said cult this way. And I was just
actually Googled cult near me.
And you just came right on in. Huh?
Yeah.
So I think it progressed, and I think it turned into that. But again, being underneath that for such a long time, I guess you don't realize it until you leave from it, that your eyes, it's like, I told people it's like a onion was peeled day after day. And Eric, I remember when I first left, told me God's going to open your eyes and you're going to see. And just like in Acts 9, where scales fell from Paul's eyes or Saul's eyes, that's how I felt when I left. It's like these scales came off of my eyes, and I was able to see what people had been telling me for so long, but I didn't listen, you know.
So take us back.
Where do you want to begin?
How did you even first find out about this cult?
Through the man sitting right across from me.
Now he's like, I Googled the cult next to me.
Cult nearby.
I was joking with them. I used to call it PTM, Pastor David's Mission, because it was like it was always about him.
Yeah. No,
but it wasn't. It wasn't always. But
so just to recap, when me and Mo started going there.
Yes, sir.
David was not preaching, Carol was, but I know you were giving the words on Wednesdays and sometimes Sunday. Right. And every time you preached,
it was fire,
you spoke to me. You know what I'm saying? You spoke to my soul.
Amen.
And I love the way you preach, and you were raw with it. You know what I'm saying? So we grew a lot and got fed a lot through there. Regardless, we didn't understand why David was sitting down. Obviously, we talked about it previously, and we found out, like, wow. But how did you first start going there? You said, this guy right here?
Correct.
It's his fault. He actually invited David.
He led me into it, man.
So go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I met Eric at college. So when I was going to HCC, community college,
shout out to the HCC alumni.
You know what I'm
saying? I grew up in the Catholic Church, but I knew deep down I wasn't living right for the Lord. I was around gangs. I did constant drugs, man. I mean, drinking alcohol probably for 8 years straight. Did cocaine every 3 days. Went all the way to ecstasy, to what's the other thing called? Crystal meth. So did all that, man. But whenever I met him in the college, he came to me and told me about the church, about Jesus. And he asked me a question, man, which really shook me, because he said, man, if you were to die today, you know, where would you go? And I was like, man, I don't like that question, like it rubbed me the wrong way.
I just came out of math class.
Exactly. You're messing with my head, bro. Yeah. But I felt like he was, when I would drive home, I always, like those seeds were planted, and made me really think. Because the other thing that I noticed about him was that he came from California. He told me he was in gangs. He told me he was in drugs. So like I could really relate to him. Yeah. And so I felt like, dude, like how did he stop doing that, telling me Jesus is the answer and I'm going to church, but I can't stop. So that really like intrigued my interest to be like, man, I want to hear what this dude got to say. Yeah. But another thing I want to tell him, shout out to him, like he never judged me, bro. He never condemned me. He knew I was living wrong, but he didn't like knock me for that. He prayed for me, and finally he kept inviting me to a group. Man. So I said, dude, when's the group? It's like it's on a Friday night. I'm like, dude, who the heck goes to church on a Friday?
So I'm about to turn up, man.
Yeah. So because to me, Friday was like the most difficult day. Like, I mean, that's when you get high. I mean, that's just what you do before the weekend.
It's Friday. You ain't got no job.
Exactly.
It's Friday. That's when you hit everybody up. Everybody's calling you, hey, you going?
Exactly.
You know what's crazy? Like I was thinking about it. You said you did coke every 3 days, and it takes 3 days to get out your system. So right when you was about to get clean, boy, you got dirty again, man. It was
it's because, man, like when to get back to normal, I guess you could say, it took me at least 3 days because of how much I would do.
That's crazy.
So my body to recover, and then I get that urge again, and there I am again.
So now you got elox in your brain, on your conscience, them seeds planted.
So so he invited me. So finally I was like, all right, dude, because he just kept on. I had him for my class, so 2 times a week he over there talking to me. So
he's my lab partner. I can't avoid him.
Exactly.
We fell in the class together because he's just talking the whole time.
Yeah. But I kind of want to make a little side comment here, man, to tell people like God knows who to send your way.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like I was a very stubborn dude in my own right. And but he was stubborn in essence of trying to reach me, and I got a lot of respect for that, man.
Already. Shout out to you.
Yeah, man. So finally, I was like, all right, bro, I'll go. I went, and when I went, I remember he drove, and we went to go pick up Pastor David, and
we just call him David around here.
Yeah. We took
so it was actually a group that it wasn't PTM yet. It was a group that we had started, and
so
we actually invited.
Founder right here.
Originator.
We actually invited.
Almost spit out that coffee.
We actually invited Pastor David to come in and share a word.
Just David.
Pastor David.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't really bother me to call him Pastor David or David Davila. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we had invited him to come and share a word.
So we went there, and to be honest, dude, at the beginning, I thought what really grabbed my attention was when he came in, because I'm so used to like the Catholic Church, so I'm used to like people wearing robes. You know what I'm saying? And no offense like that, but
so when he came in with a robe, it didn't bother you?
Yeah, he came in with jeans, and I'm like, no, it did bother me, because I'm like, what is this? Like, who is this guy?
How frequently were you going to Catholic church?
Every week.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So, but I wasn't changing, type of deal. So, but nothing against Catholics, man. I think there's real born again Catholics out there, bro. Sure. Yeah, so I believe in that. So anyway, so he first got in the car, and I'm just sharing my story, man, because this is what spoke to me so much. He got in the car, he was wearing jeans, so it shocked me. And then he just told me, he's like, man, what's up, boss? And I was like, what? Like, now you're going to tell me what's up? I'm like, what is this? So it really piqued my interest to be like, man, he's relating to me, you know, because that's how I speak, you know.
He even turned the chair backwards and sat down like, what's up, boss?
So that really like intrigued me, man. And then I got to the meeting, didn't know what was going on. They said, we're going to stand up and worship. And I'm like, what is that? And what does that consist of? And so I just stood there, I saw people with their hands up, other people on their knees, and I'm like, what do I do?
Looking around like, when are we going to say the rosary?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know what I was doing. So I just stood there, and then I remember they played Jeremy Camp. I forgot the name of the song. I think it's Faith or Living by Faith or something like that. Yeah. And it really spoke to me because I ain't never heard of Christian music before. My whole life, Christian rap was foreign to me, and so I was like, man, this song is like, man, this speaking to me, type of deal. And don't remember the message, but I do remember when it was all done, David came up to me and he was like, hey, what do you want? And I told him, I said, man, I can't stop doing cocaine. I can't stop drinking. I've been to, which I didn't share this, but I went to rehab, inpatient and outpatient. I went to counseling, and I just couldn't couldn't stop. My parents dumped thousands of dollars, bro, trying to help me, and I just couldn't get free, man. Yeah. You know, so I told him that, and then he's like, and this really spoke to me, dude. You know, he said, it seems like you've tried everything. Why don't you try Jesus? Mm-hmm. And that really hit me, you know, and I was like, man, that makes sense to me. And the other thing that really spoke to me that I remember that he told me was, if you, this is the word of God, and he showed me the Bible. And he's like, you got to put your faith in what God has said in his word. And he's like, give it 3 months. And if it doesn't work, then go back to the world. And I was like, what? Like, you a pastor? You telling me that? You know? So that really shocked me, because I'm like, but his faith was like in God's word, you know, by telling me, hey, this is what's going to change you, you know? And because I told him, I got hurt, I got angry, and I'm like, so what are you going to do about it? Because I can't change. And he told me, he's like, nothing. And he said, but Jesus can do everything, you know, to me. And I said, okay. And so I got down on my knees, I prayed, and, you know, I didn't feel any different, you know, but supposedly they tell me, hey, you're born again, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
I could see it on you.
My face was glowing like Moses, you know? And so I went home, you know, jamming Tupac and Biggie, I ain't gonna lie. And while I'm driving
from
home,
German camp to Biggie.
It's exactly. It just had that change, you know. And I went home, and I'm like, the only way I knew how to celebrate was to get drunk. That's all I knew. Yeah. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna drink me some beer, you know. So
I got born again.
So, yeah, you know, that's just what you do, you know. And so I went to get some beer, dude. And I never forget this, man. My testimony is, I went there to grab the beer, and I heard a voice, like, no joke, tell me no. And I freaked out. I cussed, and I was like, you know, who the F is here? Like, and my heart started burning, and I'm like, what's going on? I didn't know what was happening with me. And so I went around my room, same thing happened. You know, the pain went away, or the burning sensation in my heart went back, tried to get the beer again, same thing, heard the voice. And I said, dude, I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I'm sick, you know? And so then I end up going to sleep. And when I go to sleep, I have a dream. In the dream, there's a white refrigerator. I open it up, and it's full of Bud Light, you know? So I'm like, dude, I'm about to get drunk, you know? So I'm like fiending, I'm drooling, I'm excited. And I go up there to grab the beer, and when I drink it, dude, it tasted like watered down beer, but it was full. So I get super angry, upset, throw it on the ground, and I do this 3 times. And on the 3rd time, when I drink it, it tasted like sour milk. And then boom, woke up from my dream, sitting up, drenched in sweat, and I said, dude, this is tripped out. I don't know what's happening to me. So I grabbed my phone, and I called Pastor David. Straight up called him. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I called him angry, and I said, man, what did you do to me? You know? Yeah. And he said, man, hold on, calm down. What's happening? And so I explained to him the whole thing I just told y'all. And he said, well, you came to the meeting, and what did you ask God to do? And I said, I wanted him to change my life. He said, well, what you think he's doing? And that really, you know, hit home with me, man. Yeah. So next day, I was supposed to go to the doctor, and I told my parents. And I said, man, I was like, I got saved. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
What's
like, you on now?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, what? You got saved? What you talking about? You know, because I was supposed to go to the doctor, and they were going to prescribe me some pills so that whenever you drink beer, it like tastes like horrible, you know, type of deal. So they were going to give me these pills or whatever. And I told my mom, I said, no, let me go to church with Eric, you know. And she's like, no, we've been trying to help you this long, da-da-da-da. And I said, no, just trust me. Give me this one last chance. So they said, okay. Went to church again with Eric, came back home, had another dream. And in this dream, it was about cocaine, you know. So I felt like the Lord dealt with my 2 addictions in 2 days, you know. And the first one was with alcohol, I just told y'all. Second one was with cocaine, because I had a table like this, but I was, you know, like maybe 8, 9 feet in the back by the door. And my homeboys were there. They were doing the lines of the coke. And they said, come on, let's go. And I was like, man, in my dream, I didn't want to. But, you know, you have that pulling sensation that's trying to take you to it. And I was like, man, I don't want this. But I started taking some footsteps forward. And I was like, man, I don't want to do this. And then all of a sudden, this presence enters into the room, man. And when the presence comes into the room, it like clothes me is all I can tell people. My testimony, it's like this blanket came from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. And it just clothed me, man. And I grabbed the straw that my friend had given to me, because he told me it's your turn, and he gave it to me. And that's when the presence came on me. I let go of the straw, and this gush, the Bible says you believe in Jesus and rivers of living water come out of you, and this river just came out of me, man. And I dropped the straw and I screamed at the top of my lungs to all of my friends, and I said, all of you need Jesus. That's what I said.
You need to repent.
Yeah, man. And when I said that, I let go of the straw, and then I, again jumped up in my dream. I woke up, I'm drenched in sweat again, but this time, man, I had such a passion inside of my heart to win souls for Jesus. And so ever since that day, after I got saved, I emptied out my phone and I started calling every single gang member, every single thug, every single person I knew from the streets.
Lose my number.
No, I went to preach to them. Every single last one of them. I knocked on their door. People hung up on me. People asked me to leave their house. People kicked me out their house. But anybody that would give me a meeting, man, I went there and I preached the gospel to them, And I've been sober now for 14 years.
Hallelujah.
So,
already, man.
God is good.
You obviously had a drastic change, right?
So this was 2008, right?
This was 2007. I got saved in March of 2007.
So you had this drastic change. You realized God is real.
Yeah, amen.
Right?
Amen.
This guy, Pastor David, is helping you through it.
Mm-hmm.
You got Eloks. You got people around you now.
And then during that time, I wanted to do more, and I thought Pastor David was going to, I wanted to join him because he had vision. And then little by little, Mike begins to grow in his faith. And let me say this about Mike. Mike is one of those people that, because of his experience, he had a rapid growth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because of that experience, like Mike just took off running, started getting in the word, started preaching the gospel. And little by little he became a deacon. You know what I'm saying? He became he just grew in in trust within the church. Just serving a lot, picking people up, preaching the gospel.
How long was it before you became a deacon?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to tell you real quick. So in my first year, I would say about the 10th month is when I actually got my first group, because I was constantly serving, preaching, and I was exhausted because he told us from the pulpit, whatever I teach, you guys, why don't you go and, from the Bible, go share it with people that didn't show up. So I took it seriously. Yeah. And I went to people's houses, homes, and I'm like, hey, man, why are you not in church?
Hey, you heathens, I'm here to preach to you.
Exactly.
This is what he talking about.
You didn't come to church, I'm coming to you.
Exactly. So that really, I would say, even accelerated my growth even more, because then people would ask me questions. Yeah. And I'd be like, man, I don't know that.
I got to find out.
Yeah. Exactly. So I go home, pray, study the scriptures, and come back. So I told him this one day, and he's like, man, why are you tired? We only meeting 2 days a week. I'm like, man, I'm meeting every day, with people. Man, I'm exhausted. He said, well, how's that? I said, well, I'm constantly teaching what you teach to these people. And he's like, well, why don't you just do this? And he gave me the idea of start your own group, and then gave me the message. And that's how I started within, I think it was my 10th or 11th month that I was able to get my own group.
How old were you at this time?
20. I got saved at 20 in March, so I was 21 when that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. And so after that, about my 4th year is when I became a deacon, and my 9th year is when I became the associate pastor, and then in my 12th year is when I actually left.
So what were some first signs that you kind of began to see, like, hey, like, what's going on here at Present Truth Mission isn't right?
Before we get into that, we called you the financial guy, right? At what point did you get appointed to be over finances?
That's a good question, man.
My boy Mo wants to know what happened to his $1,500.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me look.
It's a stimulus check I'm looking for. Somebody gonna give it to me.
Ask President Joe Biden. He gonna tell you. But so I would say around, man, bro, I don't know the key date to tell you, but I know that he saw an anointing on me to communicate, to speak publicly, and to preach. And then I think he saw that level of loyalty in me. So obviously you're going to trust somebody that's loyal in essence of the money. Yeah. And so I would say he started entrusting me to take up the tithes, to start give small messages or whatnot. But to put a date on it, man, I really don't know. But I know I would say it was less than maybe between 3 to 5 years or something that it started like that. But I didn't see any discrepancies, from him at the beginning, because I know financially at the beginning he was paying the hotel himself, and his card was on file and he was paying it, so didn't see anything during that time. But the first incident I would say came when he sat down. He had to be sat down, and then came to our attention It's because of, some girls he was actually talking to. There was some, though, that I didn't even know about till I actually left.
And
12 years later.
And he was married at this time.
Correct. He was married the whole time.
Time.
Yeah. So that's where I started to see things. But during that time too, man, when that stuff happened, I felt like he was able to play both sides to kind of keep my loyalty close while actually, manipulating the situation. I think he was, for lack of better words, a mastermind at doing that, and because I always felt like I only knew enough to keep me close, to him, and to be like, hey, you're a Christian, you got to practice forgiveness, and you've been here. This was a big one that always got me. You got saved here. You belong here. And it just, it resonated with me, man. And then I think, looking back on it, man, I think he knew too how to play on my chords of loyalty, because I'm a very loyal guy, man. Even in the streets, I'm like a skinny dude, but yet people would call me to do the bad stuff because they knew I would do it, and so I think he was able to kind of play that, on me to keep me where he wanted me. And then the other thing that I want to just, I guess, say right now too is, so once I ended up leaving too, I ended up finding out there was things that were said to certain people that I never knew he actually said, when like, in other words, like, he lied to me about them. So things he told me about them was not true about them.
Like, but yet people against each other?
No. To keep me from reaching out to them, and because there was always, they're just haters. They'll just be back. Watch. One day they'll come back and they'll be begging for our help.
Because a couple of the key topics we touched on,
okay,
that was one
that
of
makes
them.
sense, and I would just be gullible, man, and believe it,
So you're got saved at 20 years old.
Yes.
You're still young. Your church background is kind of just, attending church, not really having a personal relationship.
Yeah, I didn't know anything, man.
So you're new to the faith, right. So it can really be, manipulated in any way, and you had a real experience with God.
Right.
You had a real relationship with him, so you're kind of going with the flow.
Right.
Now, when the first time the allegation comes out, he sat down. How did you feel about that?
It hurt me. But I remember telling him, like, I'm here for you, and I'm going to help pick this church back up.
Question.
Because, again, that was my loyalty,
Question, for the lack of better words, who was there for the victim?
During that time?
Yeah, because everybody was there for Pastor whenever he was messing up. Well, I won't even say that. Everybody was there for David when he was messing up. But what about the people that he hurt?
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I don't think anybody was
reached out to them and like.
So let me tell you, man. So I think during that time when this person got hurt, I think one of the major mistakes that Pastor Carroll made was, I'm going to be the one to help you. I don't understand how you can be the one to help somebody when it was your husband was the one that was hitting on the girl.
Not only that, she must be hurting in some type of way also.
Well, that's exactly. Right. That's right, because the girl that that Pastor David was messing with, she was still around.
Yeah, correct.
She didn't just leave the church right
away.
Wow. Yeah. And Pastor Carol, which is Pastor David's wife, she was the one doing the ministry to this girl.
Right. So that's just off, and but that's how.
But I mean, being in a situation, you see them. Okay, well, they're handling that situation,
right? So I'm like, again, because I don't know, and I'm like, okay, well, he's handling it, so I'm just gonna help pick the church back up, because obviously he's not gonna be preaching, he's not gonna be teaching or whatever, so I got to fill that spot. So I felt like that's probably another reason why I stayed longer than I did, or longer probably than I should have, because I was like genuinely helping people, bro, and but I just had that burden to be like, man, the sheep are there, they're hurt, they're wounded, you got to help them, and that's what I did.
Do you remember anything that he told you, like, whenever you said, man, I'm here for you? Like, how did he approach you, as far as, like, I'm pretty sure at some point y'all probably had a one-on-one where... No,
like, I mean, just the usual, man, that I think anybody would say casually, like, thank you for being there for me. We're going to get through this. It's not the end, and then he was very good, too.
Instead of being like, man, I'm sorry that I messed up, he's like, he was almost coaching you through it.
He would apologize to me, but, I mean, he was a strong leader, and he had a lot of vision. And so he would begin to show me, well, this is what I think you should be doing. This is where I think we're going to be going. So help my wife, And so I'm like, okay. And so I got a lot of training in that regard, not in essence of sinning, but training like a vision and how to carry a ministry.
So one of the things that I noticed is even though he wasn't preaching, tithing message would happen, and right before the word would start, he would go up there and say stuff. Always interject like, "Hey guys, make sure y'all do this and da. All right," and then he'll go sit down, and then Pastor Carroll go preach. So I felt like
that's not healthy.
I felt like,
and he was always writing a book.
And mind you, at the time, I didn't know he was in sin. We just knew he would step down to get a sabbatical to get closer to God. That's what I understood. Yeah. So to see him going up there, I'm like, bro, you don't even preach. Sit down. Like you going up and still trying to make demands. So you're saying like during this time he was sitting down, he was still kind of telling you how to lead the church, right? And still kind of, hey, talk about this.
Still behind the scenes running the show.
So he didn't really step down. I mean, he stepped down, but he's still
still using his influence.
What's crazy? What's crazy about 100%. It to me, because I see it at the church that I'm at now, is like when somebody steps down, sometimes they make it seem like it's almost like the appearance, like I need to get closer to God, holiness side. Because for the most part, the church never finds out about these things unless it's blown up publicly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's never because the way it should be done biblically, which that's one thing I got on Elox and Whiteout, which is first, it should have been a one-on-one rebuke. Then it should have been in front of the elders, which in y'all case, just in front of the leaders. And then if you still continue to do it, it should have been done in front of the congregation. And then after that, dudes, get out of here. Take your wife with you too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because that's the way it should have, biblically, as far as I know, and you're a pastor, so maybe you could elaborate more on it and tell me where I'm wrong.
I've learned a lot, yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like...
So yeah, let me shine a lot of light on that, man. Yeah. So I think one of the quotes that really spoke to me when I first left was what Dr. Michael Brown said. And I want to say this, on the podcast here, is you never put the sin you never put the reputation of a leader that fell above the victims. You never do that. And looking back, that's what we always did.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's not focus on the victim. We need to make sure we restore the man of God. And I believe in that. I think they do need to be restored, but I also believe that his reputation was just ruined. Yeah. So you can't put that above the victims that he just hurt. And I feel like that's exactly what Pastor Carroll did. And at the beginning, I didn't know, because they would tell me, man, all these girls, they're messaging her and sending her these bad messages and they're cursing at her. And I'm like, so I would get angry, but I didn't know why. But now I know. And that's why I can publicly say, I'm sorry to all those girls, because I was a part of that hurt them. And I humbled myself to, I don't even know how many meetings I had when I left, of so many people I've met with one-on-one and personally repented and apologized to them because of how I treated them, like that. Because I don't think it was handled the right way.
Yeah.
Because the overseers that he supposedly had were his family. Pastor Carroll's
brother-in-law.
Correct.
Yeah, we talked about that. Pastor Octavio and Griselda Machuca.
Right.
Now let me ask you a question. How did you act when, because you didn't know a lot of the information, a lot of the details about these girls, and that Pastor David was preying on. How did that make you act in regards to the information?
Can I finish this one first, though?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back, because I want to say this to you, because you're talking about leadership. So I believe that when you have somebody in place, the only way to reinstate somebody is the overseer does it. But I believe the reason why with them it didn't work is because the overseer was your relative, and I don't believe you do that. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then I also believe that there has to be a track record that's proven that shows, okay, you're better now. And then, yes. And the other thing I don't agree with as well, which I can say this now that I'm gone, is your spouse should not continue to minister.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. You're just as wounded, and you can't flow from a wounded soul. You just can't. You can't keep going like nothing's happened. And you're just going to make the problem worse.
Both of them have to be restored.
Yes. And so I feel like both of them should have stepped down. But he stepped down and she never did. I think that's wrong. And I don't agree with that.
And the emotion reflected in the way she preached, because most of the time it was a lot of rambling. It was a lot of emotion.
People have told me a lot about her preaching. Yes.
A lot of it, at first it was like, man, it makes you cry too, because, she's passionately crying and saying things. But sometimes it felt like, what are we even talking about? Because it was just kind of like, you know, emotion led.
It would feel good, like whenever you leave Sunday, you good, and then it's like Monday, like, man, what was the scripture? You know what I'm saying? Like,
So I think in essence of like for now, for example, when we get into that part of the interview, I have my overseer with me now, but it's like the way you protect yourself.
It's not your cousin, is it?
No, it's not.
Already. Just making sure.
No, you have to have like stuff written in your bylaws.
Yeah.
And this is a huge one. I don't know if I can talk about it now. Is it okay? So in the bylaws, it's supposed to show like if this happens, this person's coming in to remove you.
Yeah.
And in my bylaws for my church, it says that. And the reason for that is because it puts the fear of God in me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's good because if you're messing up, somebody above you's coming in and you're behind sitting down.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be. But in their case, the crazy thing that I ended up finding out from one of the girls that he did talk to, which I'm not going to say her name, but she ended up messaging me because he was having her like do edits or whatever. She, you know, like his secretary or whatnot. So she was doing these edits. And then in the edits, I read on, I forgot what page it was on the document, but it actually showed that nobody could sit him down that was actually a relative of him. It was written in the bylaws.
Man.
So I was like, what? But it's like so deep into it. You have to get to like page 15 or 20, you know what I'm saying, to actually go in there. But she noticed it because she was proofreading. And she said, Pastor Mike, what is this? And I looked at it and I was like, whoa, it is crazy. So even the documentation was set up so that anybody it says that he's married to or related to doesn't have the power to sit him down. So what he was trying to create was a board of people that he knew trusted him, but that he could control.
And they couldn't touch him.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
It's crazy, man.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And
so I didn't find that out till after I left because that's when she sent me the documents and I went through them and I was like, wow, that is crazy. So that's proof of evidence that, you know, he was just playing.
He was playing games. Yeah. And he was the master of the game.
Yeah, man. It's crazy.
He was very smart with it.
Yes.
Yeah. We got into, you know, of course, we, on the previous episode talking to Whiteout and Elos, we couldn't understand how y'all could be so naive and dumb and blind. That's basically what it came down to. And I mean, they gave their insight on how in the moment, y'all didn't really know what was going on. I mean, like you said, limited information was given to y'all.
Everybody had different pieces.
Well, I could answer that through a scripture, man. I mean, First Timothy 4, I think it's First Timothy 4, says in the last days some will depart from the faith and they'll follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons.
Even the elect, you know, will be deceived.
Yeah.
So
it's,
I mean,
it's like, I mean, if I were to tell,
He's a demon.
No, but if I were to tell somebody, you know, how are you going to be following a doctrine of a demon?
Yeah,
but it's talking to
the devil.
Yeah. It's talking to believers, man. You know what I'm saying? And so the point is, you don't know you're deceived. That's why it's called deception.
Exactly.
You know, and Jesus, they asked him in Matthew 24, said, "What's going to be the sign of your coming?" The first thing he says is what? Don't be deceived. That's what he tells his disciples. You know, and so I feel like I'm not trying to cover myself up here, but just to tell you, like that's what I was. Yeah. In one word, I was deceived. Yeah. You know, and I was under the power of deception. And I would even go so far to say I was under the power, because cults are run by the power of witchcraft.
Definitely.
And that's what I was under. It was like a spell that's over you until you leave from underneath that power. The scales, like I told you at the beginning, fall off your eyes and you're finally able to see what you never saw before.
Because nobody in their right mind would knowingly know all this stuff and be like, oh, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, if y'all really knew everything and it was exposed and I doubt y'all would have stayed there for so long.
So let me give you all a good story of this. Okay, so this is a good testimony here. This really happened. Okay, what I'm about to tell you. So in one situation that happened, he had fallen into sin with a girl or whatnot, talking to her inappropriately. So this person reached out to me, and when I left PTM, I went back and looked at my messages, and I saw how I shunned her and totally like pushed her away because I was her leader and she looked up to me. And this was a girl I met with already with my wife, and we repented to her and her husband, and thank God, she forgave me and we were able to get restored because again, she understood the deception part. Yeah.
Was she married when that happened, when Pastor David?
No, I think they were just I think they were married.
So he was even going after married women.
She was
Yeah,
married.
well he would go after married women.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure if this is the case here, but he would. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the situation blew up like that, and So they ended up reaching out to people who had commissioned Pastor David, which was in Colombia. And this was Sin Muros with Cesar Fardo. So he contacted them, and there was a guy there by the name of John, and he had stayed at our house before with my parents because he had came to minister to the church before in the past. And so this person reached out to him, and he was going to come down here to be able to check out the situation. So Pastor David calls me, and I go to his house, and he ends up, again, talking to me and telling me, hey, this is the situation, but you're a pastor now. You're a leader now. You're able to handle this. So we're going to put this into your hands. So I'm going to go ahead.
My dirt is now, you handle it.
Yeah, like you're going to be able to help the church now. You're going to be able to do it. John doesn't need to come. Okay. Wow. You're going to be able to do it. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like believing him. And he takes my laptop and he writes a letter, but under my email and actually sends it to John. But all of it's under his writing, and telling him like, hey, you don't have to believe these people. They're bad people. They're drug addicts. They're sinners. Like he basically cast doubt on their testimony. Yeah, is what he did in the email. But John received it, but it came through me.
So did you know at the moment that he was typing under your email?
Yeah, I knew at the moment.
But you didn't think much of it.
I didn't think much of it, man. And I know now, like I said, the people that are going to listen to this, I apologize to them, and they forgave me, thank God, and we're good friends, to this day. But that's what he did. And he just kind of, hyped me up. And it's like, hey, you're going to be able to do this. You're a pastor now. I got faith in you. Like just, giving me all that, stuff to make me feel good or whatnot.
Get 'em.
So,
and that just shows how deception works.
Yeah.
I think that's your whole point.
Right. And he just basically, my point is like he just manipulated the entire situation so that he could still use me and keep that man away. And then have those people that he casted doubt on out of the church. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened.
That was part of the culture, like they talk about, is like when somebody pretty much leaves, like
they're cast
away and don't talk to them. Yes. And I brought up the fact that whenever I messaged everybody and told y'all that I was leaving the church to go to another church, Mike Hernandez left the group message. Elox left the group message, and so on and so forth. Right. And it was like, I was like, man, I thought we were boys.
You're
you know
just
what I'm saying?
like a castaway, man.
But it was just like the culture.
So it was the communication that he had made to us about you.
Right. Yep.
So
what did he say? I want to know. Come on, you remember? You remember?
I don't remember.
He told me, he was like, Mo, Chris called you fat, and I was like, what? This brother here?
But you know what?
Every time you call him, every time you call me, I'm like, you don't go to PTM no more. We can't talk.
Yeah, but you see what I mean? Like he controlled the situation, man, and he was
very
good. It
seemed like, I promise, when I send it out, it seemed like he messes all the leaders, which the first ones to leave the group message, and said, hey, y'all cut off communications, because immediately like boom, 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 back to back.
He wouldn't say like cut off communication. He would say like, hey, this is what happened, and he would spin it all around.
Right. He would explain it and spin it in a way that's like, man, I don't need to follow Chris no more.
So and talking about that, so
he's a hater. He's a hater.
You mentioned that you found out some things afterwards, after you left, that he pretty much played the situation and told you a lie or told somebody else a lie. Can you expand on it a little bit?
Yeah, well, there was.
And let me add to that too. Many times he would have you actually do the dirty work and kick people out. We talked last week about how people left, but you were always one of the ones that was always kicking people out. Yeah.
But you never kicked out Pastor David.
Yes, exactly, because nobody could.
He was unkickable.
Yeah.
In the bylaws,
you couldn't move that man, and you just had to leave. That's it. Because even the overseers couldn't sit him down, so it's crazy, man, how people continue on, doing the work knowing that, you're living wrong, it's crazy. So, but yes, I ended up kicking like people out because some people wanted to come back, but when they would come back, they knew his dirt, and so he's like, I don't want him here, type of deal. But I'm like, but this is a church, they want God, but it's all relating back to him,
so and females.
So it's like, correct. And so it's like, you're going to have to ask them. And dude, and so there was this one incident, which I was talking to Eric about, that I wanted to look into the camera in a moment. I'm going to get there. But that he came to me, and this person was inside the building already. And it's like, man, I just heard from, one of the people in the church that she knows, this, and that about me. And she's been posting this stuff on Facebook, and she's been hating on us. And so, we can't tolerate that. You're just going to have to ask her to go. And I said, no. And we fought, man. That was like, because I respect pastors, man. I think that's why I am a pastor. Like, I have deep respect for people. And I feel like I told him, that's the only time I felt like I really got crunk, man. I got angry. And I told him, I'm like, no, man, I'm not going to do it. And it just kept pressing and pressing. And I was just so angry, and I just left, and I ran inside, and I was just so upset. And
but this was outside the service?
Yeah, outside. Yeah, wow. the building that we're having this argument, because I didn't want to go do it.
Yeah.
So I told him, like, man, you go do it.
For real.
And I told him that, and it's like, no, I'm sitting, and they spin the story. Well, I don't have no authority right now. I'm not sitting down. But you're telling everybody what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But you telling me to go kick her out.
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. So finally, I'm like, man, whatever. And I go in there, man, and I sit down with her, and I start telling her the whole spiel. And I tell her that, I'm going to have to escort you, to your car. Crazy. And it's just horrible, bro. And so she started crying, and it back then it bothered me. It made me angry. But when I left for this person specifically, I cried, because I have been trying to find them, like on social media since all this, trying to tell them that I'm sorry. And I hope if this video does get to her, that I would be able to repent to you personally, but I'm going to repent to you publicly in front of everybody here, that I'm sorry for treating you like that, disrespectfully. I was under deception, but at the same time, I still want to take ownership for what I did to you, because I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry for that. And I pray that you would find it in your heart to forgive me, because even in my own private time with God, I have repented several times for hurting so many people that the Lord would bring up to me, because people looked up to me, man, and people really trusted me, and they looked up to me as their leader, and I let them down. So I'm hoping that if she watches this, you could meet with my wife and I one of these days, so we can personally repent to you in person. So,
wow. At any point, did you rebuke Pastor David?
I told him several times that I was disappointed, that I was angry, that I was upset, because it was something that, like to be honest, dude, when I look back on it, I think out of my whole salvation, because I got saved there, obviously, he was probably sitting down more than 50% of the time I was saved.
He was there 100% for us.
So
he was sitting down.
It's like, yeah, man. And so I feel like that was pretty disappointing. The day that he
never came back. He never got restored.
Right. Because the other thing that really hurt me, man, was the day that I was supposed to be ordained was a very bittersweet day, because the reason why I got ordained during that time was because he fell again, wow. And Don Norai during that time told them, you guys need another authority in the spirit, to be taking that lead, to be governing the church. And so I was, the next in line. And so Pastor Carol called me, like, I'm telling you, man, it was like a bittersweet moment, because she called me like at 1 a.m, because they were having a meeting with Don Norai, Pastor Octavio, and all that. She's like, oh, yeah, just make sure you dress nice tomorrow. We're going to ordain you. And she hung up. And wow. I'm like, oh, okay. So do I tell my family, or what's going on?
What is this?
That's a big moment in your life.
Yeah. So I felt like, would have been a little more considerate, Yeah. And it hurt me, because I'm like, he's supposed to be my leader, but he's not the one ordaining me. Pastor Octavio was with Pastor Carol.
Is it kind of crazy to y'all, the fact that all his overseers were never in the church? Yeah, like none of them lived in Houston, so it's not like a one-on-one mentorship type thing or discipleship, however we want to classify it. It's like people that Colombia, like that's crazy to me, right? It's like, I understand to a certain extent, but at the same time, it's like they don't know him.
If you can fake, so like somebody you go to church with and you see on Sundays, right? If you can fake, man, everything's good, brother, you know what I'm saying? And you telling them
blessing
all that, and that's every week, you know what I'm saying? If you can fake that,
like
imagine
the churchgoer,
average churchgoer, we think, oh, man, so everything's good. Imagine somebody that comes once a year, twice a year. Yeah. You think they're going to find out?
So let me tell you something that's really shocking. Okay. So when I had left, this guy that I told y'all about, John, I had spoke to him. He spoke to me. I told him everything that happened. And his response like shook me, because he said, man, even, I don't even know if I told you this, bro, but even Cesar Fajardo told John, he said, man, I never felt peace about commissioning that guy.
Man.
And this dude's a real, now understand this dude's a real apostle in Colombia.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a real one, and authentic. And so he said he just didn't feel right, but the guy, John, was the one that convinced him to say, go ahead and vouch for him. Yeah. So he did it because of John.
You got to stay, that spirit of discernment was there.
It was there, man.
Because one thing I told Elokes and Whiteout is like, this dude got kicked out of his previous church. Like, that should have been a red flag from the beginning. And even at that, his own wife's mother would go up there and speak on, I never liked him.
Yeah, so let me give you more shocking news on that.
Come on.
Okay.
This needs to be a movie.
And we don't really know why he got kicked out of
because so many people have said, man, well, he got kicked out. And I believe that for all these years until I finally left. And then one of the girls that grew up in that actual church that he went to, grew up there, and she said, man, I need to find out what really happened.
So this is a girl who was going to Present Truth Mission.
Correct, but that left years before
and
us.
then went back to find out the truth.
Correct.
Okay.
And the reason why I believe, obviously, her testimony is because, I mean, I trust her, but at the same time, it's because she went to talk to the elders in the church that were there even before Pastor David got there.
So the ones that kicked him out, pretty much, or what are you saying?
No, I'm going to tell you he didn't get kicked out. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And I'm about to tell y'all why. Okay.
So this was
what really happened?
This was a big part of his story. Like, my pastor kicked me out, and
that's the story he ran with, and we're like, man.
Yeah, because normally whenever you become a pastor, the pastors from your previous church are the ones that are over you. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're your covering type thing.
Right.
You know?
So the way he spun the story of him getting kicked out was that his pastor was like intimidated by him. That was the whole issue, man. I was growing more than everybody. I rose up in the ranks, and he got intimidated by me. So he brought me in. So he brought me.
He had so many crazy stories. Like
man. So and I mean, the way he would spin it. I mean, it was believable. You know, like it's crazy.
He actually went to School of Theology and all that, right?
He went to Bible college.
Yeah, he went to Bible college. So I mean, and he had thousands of books, so he was educated, and so you kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Correct. Yeah.
So what did the elders say?
Yes. So when she went to talk to the elders of that church, then they ended up telling her, they said, what? He never got kicked out. And they ended up explaining that he wanted to start a English church because it was an all Spanish church. Mm-hmm. And so when he wanted to start the English church, it was able to, it was growing for a while. I don't know the exact time frame that it was growing, but then the pastor came and said to shut it down, because he didn't feel it was right to be reaching that people group yet. He wasn't ready because he didn't speak English, the pastor. He just spoke all Spanish. Yeah. So when he actually closed that down, that's when he actually got upset and got offended. And then he ended up saying, okay, then I'm just going to leave. And a lot of the people that joined him during the time that was later, a lot of families had joined him, but they joined him because they were in that English church with him. Yeah. So he took them with him. Wow. So it wasn't that he kicked them out. It's that he didn't get what he wanted, so he went his own way. Yeah. So from the very beginning, and this is what I'm gonna tell people, from the very beginning, it didn't start off on the right foot.
Yeah, and he was making it seem like it was something honorable that he got kicked out.
Yeah, like I'm a rebel, type of deal. We're like, oh yeah, we're young.
I can't stop what God is doing.
I was too on fire for God.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, man. So I'm like, I can't believe I'm a part of this. Okay, cool.
But then he didn't let nobody leave.
Yeah,
but he bragged about how he left.
Right. Oh yeah, it was hard. It was hard to. Yeah. It was hard to get into PTM, and it was harder to leave.
So that was one of the big shocks to me, was that, and then I guess I would say this one too. I can go where I want to go.
Whatever you want, bro.
All right, man. So let me go into this part because when I had left, this was the most difficult time for me, but I think I want to shine some light on anybody that could be going through something similar. So I hope this helps them. But when I was when the last time, this was in 2019, 19, because I left in February of 2019. So there was 3 girls at one time that came to me, okay, and they're like, he's talking to me, and there's text messages. I mean, there's evidence, there's proof. I mean, you just can't hide it that you're trying to, holler at this girl. They were part
of the church at this time?
This was right after you left or before?
No, before I left.
Okay.
I'm leading up to when I left and why I left.
Gotcha.
Finally, so finally left, you know. And so when I went and I looked at these messages, then obviously my phone starts blowing up because obviously I'm one of the pastors, and so everybody's calling me, hey, I heard this. And then, rumors start getting spread, and people are like, they start adding stuff to it, and I heard this and I heard that. So that's why God has, government there, leaders, so that you can set things in order, set things straight, because you're supposed to be the mouthpiece to help the people. So everybody's calling me, and I'm like, all right, man, let me call Pastor Octavio. So when I call Pastor Octavio, I say, man, what do you want me to do? Everybody has this story. They're telling me this, but I have the messages, so obviously I know the truth. I'm one of the pastors. What do you want me to do? Because he was, supposedly above
David's.
Yes, above him.
Can you give us a little insight into what the messages said?
Let me say it this way. Any human being that reads the messages will know that it's inappropriate for a pastor to be texting a girl like that. Okay. That's what I would say.
To me, a pastor should not.
What we did, me and my wife, is we would take the phones of the husband and the wife, and we put them next to each other, and we would read them, and we would see how he was talking to the husband to push him away and talking to the girl to pull her close.
At the same time?
At the same time.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy, man. And we just put the phones side by side, and you could just go through the messages
This is a marriage that maybe they're having problems.
A little rocky.
And he's like,
Correct.
And he's like counseling them.
So he would never get into somebody's marriage that was solid. You won't do that. It's somebody that trusted him, somebody and somebody that looked up to him, somebody that's like, hey, I respect you, you're my pastor. And so you could just see him casting a lot of doubt on the man, to her, and then trying to bring himself in and draw her more to himself.
Make him seem like he's this man.
Yeah, like I'm the hero to help you, and you need to, type of deal.
That is so insane.
Yeah, man.
And on top of that, he even decided on who you got to marry, who you got to date, and who was the person
topic,
for you.
Man, yeah, that's another.
That's crazy. Man. Like,
so the whole deal too was this whole permission thing. Yeah. And I feel like looking back on it was very, very religious, legalistic, controlling, and just cult-like.
Was it true that you had to have $10,000 in your bank account to propose?
That's what he told me.
No, really?
Yeah, he told me was like,
what?
Yeah. So whenever
I thought you were joking.
No, I told him I wanted to start.
I thought he was playing too.
To start courtship with Karina, right?
Wow.
Well, because first he charged me up. Hey, I see you hang out with Karina and this and that after church. Y'all go out to eat and stuff, and that's not right and this and that. And I'm like, I don't see nothing wrong with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he was like, well, look. And so I ended up.
It wasn't one-on-one. It was the whole family.
Yeah. So I ended up telling him, I was like, well, what would somebody have to do if you want to start courting somebody, right? And because that was the thing. It was like, Lorenzo and Imelda were courting. I think, you had just gotten married, but y'all were courting at the time before Zach and Amy. It was just like a thing. It was like, cool.
Zach and Amy, that was
it was hard.
They were courting because I remember they announced them on stage.
Oh, yeah.
It was hard to start courting or dating, you know what I'm saying?
And so he was like, pretty much he was like, well, first, before you even get there, you got to let me see your bank account. You got to have $10,000 in your bank account. You got to be
tied 10% of that.
So he's kind of making it impossible.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like $10,000. I got like $10 right now. But what he said was,
I got vision.
He was like, you got to show me that. Okay, once you want to get married, how you gonna pay for the wedding, and then after you get married, how you gonna support your family? Which I was like, okay, that makes sense, but $10,000. Like, I was like, man, I ain't never gonna get married.
$10,000.
But anyway.
Man, I think it was over the top. I think it was extra, and I think again that comes from that spirit, that witchcraft spirit, that's gonna put all these burdens and rules and be very legalistic and like in that to try to get to something that you can never achieve.
So he created like a heavy dependence on leadership.
And the crazy thing is, dude, I just thought about this. The crazy thing is, in the book, he would always highlight the courtship book that there's no laws. And there's no rules. Yeah. It's just principles. But yet when you really want to date somebody, all the laws and all the stuff start coming out. And I'm like, it's crazy, man.
So people understand, in the 12 years that you were there, how many people actually got married?
You and
4.
You with Lisa and me with my wife.
So
did Imelda and Lorenzo? Or no?
Yeah, after they left.
After they left.
So really like 2 marriages in 12 years. And this is the thing.
Yeah.
I never noticed
that. He didn't want y'all to be fruitful and multiply.
Many times. Well, this is the thing. Well, nobody's getting married because he's going after all the females. I know
he's hurting females and females leaving the church.
Exactly. And then the whole church is out on mission, evangelizing
to find more females,
more people.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? That's what he had us doing.
But it's unfortunate that
only evangelize to the pretty girls.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that we, in the moment while we're there, many of us didn't realize what was happening, what we were doing.
My question is basically like everybody left. You were the last one. Did you have high hopes that this dude was really going to change, or did you just
at a certain point
ignore?
Yeah, no. Again, like so I think a lot of things, bro. But I think God had me there the longest because He was preparing me to pastor people when I left. I believe that 100%. Because I don't think you need to get conditioned. You can't be a pastor overnight. Like, hey, I'm gonna be a pastor. You know, you gotta make no sense. Yeah, you're gonna be what Jesus calls a hireling if you do that. You know, in John 10. So, but I believe I'm an authentic, real pastor. I believe I am. And I'm not perfect, but I believe I'm a pastor. And Amen. I think people respect authenticity and they respect you being upfront, you know, with them and really loving them. And I feel like that's what I did, you know, that whole time was really love on people. But again, when they left, I'm like, okay, you're a hater, go away, you know, type of deal. But those that really were there, bro, I really gave my time, my effort, my blood, sweat, and tears to be able to help them to continue serving God, because I would have, all kinds of phone calls late at night, people coming to my house, people just angry, people cussing, people pissed, you know, because they're like, man, well, why is he like this? Why is it happening again? Why you let me down? And it's real because you're supposed to be their leader, you know? And so I respect that, you know? And so, but I was there to be cleaning up, you know, if you will, the mess, you know, constantly, man. Yeah. So I feel like that's why I guess one of my major answers of why I stayed so long, because the people needed help and I was their help. Yeah. And
if there was nobody there at all,
I was that guy.
And it was just David manipulating and hurting people, and there was nobody to try to protect them or try to get them to continue walking with God. I mean, it could have gone. It could have been a lot worse.
So let me. That's true. Let me bring this up now, since you said that, because I feel like what I heard a message from Mike Bickle, and Lorenzo had posted it back then, and he got on my nerves because it was like a cult message. I was like, man, I don't like this dude, Lorenzo.
He doing it purposely.
I don't like this guy. You know? Block. You know,
y'all reconcile though, right?
Yeah, of course, man. Okay. So now, dude, Lorenzo and Imelda have probably, you know, also with Eric, have helped us build the ministry more than a lot of people, man. You know, like that dude's been there. It's crazy to help me. So God really restored that, because when they left, all their people were hurt. And I had to take care of them. And all the finances Imelda dumped on my wife. Yeah. So, it burned me up, because my wife was like, man, you don't understand. Like, I got to carry all this, because that was the load. Yeah. So I'm like, man, y'all leave, and then y'all people hurt. They all confused. And now, because he made them do it on the down low. You know what I'm saying? To leave. Yeah. So all the people were like, well, what happened? So I had to handle that. Yeah.
So David made them do it on the down low, and you didn't have the whole truth.
Correct. Basically, it stirred this up in me, because I heard a message that Lorenzo had posted. I didn't believe it back then, but I believe it now. And Mike Bickle said in the message, I've pastored people that have come out of cults for over 10 years, and some of them never recover. Okay. And I didn't agree with that. And I was upset with that statement when I first heard it after I left PTM. And the reason for that is because I saw a lot of people getting healed. I saw a lot of people getting delivered, and I saw a lot of people getting restored because me and my wife were helping them, and Eric, you know? So I'm like, I don't believe that. But then the story comes to pass with Ashley, okay? And this really, 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 really hurt me, because she came to my house to talk to me and my wife on several occasions, okay? And when she talked to us, she was one of the girls that he had talked to, one of the three that I was talking about at the very end before I left. And she came to my house and she would cry. And it would really hurt me, man, because she would always say, how could he treat me like that? You know, how could he kick me out? You know, how could his wife not help me? You know, and she just had this abandonment, man, around her. And I just told her, man, I'm so sorry. Me and my wife love you. We're here to help you. And the word that the Lord always gave to me that I would always bring her back to is, I think it's in John 5 with the paralytic. And remember when he would put him in the pool and they would stir it, somebody would get healed. And I told her, I said, I believe what we're doing on Wednesdays, and I've talked about Eric too, is the pool to help people get healed. All I'm asking you to do is let us carry you to that pool. That's what I would tell her. And she'd start crying. And she would try to come on different occasions, but she never fully surrendered and committed. And so when the whole year had went by after we had left PTM It was actually, I think, last month that we celebrated her 1 year anniversary of her passing away because she died in a drug overdose. Okay, and so then a light clicked on me, and I remembered that message from Mike Bickle, and I said, no, it's actually true. Yeah. Some people never do actually recover, man, because her mom during that time was she was in prison. She never knew her dad, you know, and so now you got your spiritual dad and spiritual mom you look up to, and they just, you know, treat you like trash, and they just kick you out, you know, because he was talking to you, and she just had that abandonment. So hold on, let me say this, man. So it's like, so I felt what she died of, man, and this is what I feel. I don't believe she died. On her death certificate, it probably says drugs, but to me, man, I believe she died of a broken heart, dude. That's what I believe, that her heart was so broken, her spirit so wounded that she just drugged herself to death because she couldn't handle it. Man. That's what I believe. And that truly just really hurt me, because I understand, like, people have to own their decisions, and I understand that. But I believe he did play a huge role in her death.
For sure. She was a victim.
100%.
She was a victim. And let me say this. I remember speaking to Ashley about it, and I said, well, what did David tell you? And she was telling me what David was telling her. And I said, hey, since I was already familiar, I had already left the church.
Right.
I was already familiar, and she wasn't 100%. She wasn't 100% understanding what he was saying to her. But I said, hey, that's very inappropriate. Right. But I knew that because of all the messages and all the times that I've seen him speak to I saw the different pattern. Girls, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it was definitely inappropriate. She was a victim, and he took advantage of her.
Yes. Then you could tell she couldn't catch on. Yeah. Because it took her a long time just to even tell me what he said. Mm-hmm. It took her like a long time because, again, she's looking, you know, she has him up here. And I understand that because he's your pastor, but that's where you're able to be manipulated like that because you have that trust so high, and it just
And one
just
thing we
hurt her.
touched on was the lack of father figure in her
Correct.
life.
Yes, that's a big
her
one.
mom in prison. I mean, she was
correct.
She needed family.
So she passed away at 25. I think
she was
26.
That is crazy.
I know it affected a lot of people.
I mean, that's
I seen everybody on social media.
That's not God's will. You know, for her. But that just goes to show you, man. Like you can, and this is what. And let me say this, man. This is what my overseer, which I'll get to in a minute too, told me. He's like, there is a victim spirit that matches itself with a predator spirit. And so I believe that he turned into that cultish leader and became a predator. But then that's why so many broken people came to that place, because they were victims, and that spirit links itself with that other spirit and causes them to be taken advantage of. Yeah. Because you're only taking advantage of people that have broken pasts. Yeah, how are you going to only have that in the church? Because it's drawing them. Yeah. So it's real spiritual, man.
That goes back to that witchcraft thing.
Yes.
That was mentioned.
Yes, that's why, like, for another reason, just to give you another example, why girls keep going into bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship. I mean, there's something spiritual there, man. Yeah.
Let's chop it up.